Good evening to one and all. Welcome you all to the daily Indian Express news analysis for the date 9th September 2023, brought to you by Ganesh IAS Academy. Okay, let's get into the today's Indian Express newspaper analysis. So these are all the important articles which we will be analyzing in the upcoming slides. Have a look at it. Okay, let's get into the today's current affair analysis session. Price pressure. So from the name itself, we could able to come to some conclusion that it is related to something related to inflation or economy, something like it. Okay, what is it? We will look into it. Yes, because of deficiency in rainfall in the July as well as the August month, because of the phenomenon of El Nino, which is right now in its formative stage in the equatorial region, and also the climate changes and its related impact on the climate as well as weather pattern, there has been reduction in the rainfall has taken place, as a result of which the sowing of pulses has been drastically reduced when compared to the previous year. So because of the reduction in the sowing and also there has been scarcity in the availability of pulses in the market, there has been increased price rise in relation to the pulses right now at the market level, and at the global level there has been reduced production at Australia as well as in Argentina, and also the Mozambique, the African country from where the India is importing the pulses. There also, because of their climate related impact and then other natural disasters event led to reduction in the sowing in those countries also, as a result of which the global supply in relation to the pulses is also got reduced. Why we needed to worry about the global scenario as well as the domestic scenario in the case of pulses is, right now India is the largest producer of pulses, and at the same time India is the largest consumer of pulses. And then India is the highest importer in terms of pulses, because the domestic production of the pulses is not sufficient for us to meet our ends need. So because of the high import dependence in relation to the pulses, we have to worry about the global shortage in the supplies also. So this is what the news is about. Okay, how the news has been related to prelims? Yes, under economics, a topic called economics and social development, the news has been linked. Similarly, under mains paper 3, agriculture, major crops, cropping pattern in various part of the country is the topic where the news has been linked. Okay, let's discuss about what is the pulses about. As I said, India is the largest producer as well as consumer in terms of pulses, and it is the source of protein for vast majority of people, and it has ability to grow in the less moisture region, and also it has the ability to survive in the dry condition, so that it could also act as a drought resistance crop. So it could be well utilized for the areas where there has been areas which has been affected by the climate changes and its impact in terms of drought. And then it is the leguminous plant, as a result of which the root nodules will contain rhizobium bacterium, which enable the fixation of nitrogen which is present in the atmosphere, so that it makes the soil so fertile. So this kind of positive thing is there in the pulses. So that is why the reduction in the production of the pulses is a worrying sign. So what is the importance of pulses to India is that right now India is facing a new, right now India is self-sufficient in terms of production, but in terms of nutrition it is facing some deficiency. So in order to reduce deficiency, this pulses is very important for India because it acts as source of protein for them, and it could act as a fodder for animals or the livestock, which is part and parcel of our agriculture sector. Then similarly, because of its elongated root system, it could able to withhold the soil particle, as a result of which it has the enormous ability to reduce the soil erosion like events. And then because of its medicinal properties, it has huge values in the health related sectors. So this is what the importance of pulses in India is about. Okay, what is the challenges for pulses growth in India is the procurement by the Food Corporation of India under the procurement policy is heavily concentrated on certain cereals, even though the MSP has been given for nearly 23 products. In that, pulses also occupies certain pulses products is also getting the MSP from the government. But in the case of implementation, that is from procurement, the procurement is heavily concentrated only on certain cereals only, like in the case of rice and wheat. As a result of which, farmers are focusing more on production of rice and wheat. They are giving less importance to the production of pulses, and then it has high vulnerable to the pest attacks. If the crops are not being managed properly, means there is a chance that the crops could be damaged by the pest attacks. And then the lack of adaptation of productive technology in the agriculture sector, the farmers could not be able to exploit the positive that is present in the pulses. And then since pulses is the rain fed crop, the seasonality and also erratic nature of the rainfall that is happening right now because of the global warming and the related climate changes, the pulses are getting the sowing as well as harvesting of the pulses are getting affected because of the seasonality and the erratic nature of the rainfall. So these are all the challenges for pulses growth in India. So let's have a look into the statistics in relation to pulses in India. See, in terms of demand in 2021-2022, it is 29.26 million ton. But in the case of production, it is 26.96 million ton, and in the case of import requirement, it is 2.30 million tons. So we could able to see that nearly 8% of our requirement in terms of pulses is met through imports only, and we could able to see that the projections in the future that it is nearly 6% in 2028-29, and 29-30 it is 5.7%, and in the case of 2030-31 it is 3.6%. that is way more than 3%. So for some period of time we are going to dependent on the import of pulses only. So we needed to ensure that the global supply in terms of pulses is safeguarded from any kind of natural as well as the man-made disasters. So what are the initiatives being promoted by the government to promote the pulses production in India is Pradhan Mantri Asha scheme, and then National Food Security Mission for pulses, and then the MSP provided for the pulses. So these are all the important initiatives. And then another one is National Mission for Oil Seeds. So these are all the things which the government is doing right now to promote the pulses production in India. So what needed to be studied further, we need to study further is, we should know about the kharif as well as rabi crops. Similarly, we should also know about the sugar cane production. What kind of soil, what kind of temperature, and what is the environmental thing that is necessary for sugarcane production is, we have to know about it also. And then we should also know about MSP. Similarly, we should also know about the procurement system. And then another important factual part is, which states are highly producing the pulses in India is, first is Madhya Pradesh. Second is Uttar Pradesh. Third is Rajasthan. And then Maharashtra, Karnataka. So these are all the top 5 pulses producing states in India. So this is what the analysis in relation to the pulses production in India is about. RBI to discontinue incremental cash reserve ratio in a phased manner from today. This is what the news is about. See, let's RBI to withdraw incremental CRR in a phased manner, which was introduced to pull out the excess liquidity that is present in the banking system. Why there has been excess liquidity in the banking system is, deposit of 2000 rupees note by the citizen, because of the withdrawal of the 2000 rupees note by the RBI, and then increased spending by the government. And then increased dividend transfer from RBI to central government. So these 3 factors led to drastic increase in the liquidity in the system, as a result of which RBI introduced 10% of incremental CRR to pull out the excess liquidity that is present in the system, so that it will ensure that the inflation in the economy is under control. So this is what the explanation is about the news is. How the news is being related to civil service examination is, under prelims it is related to economics and social development. Similarly, under mains paper 3 economic development, it is related to Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development and employment. Okay, let's have a look into what is the cash reserve ratio is about. Banks need to keep certain percentage of their net time as well as demand deposit with RBI under RBI Act 1934. So under RBI Act 1934, the ratio between which the CRR will be fixed by RBI is 3% to 15%. Between this range only the RBI will be fixing the CRR, that is the cash reserve ratio, that is the reserve the bank needed to kept aside with the RBI, and then there will be no interest will be earned by bank. By keeping their money with the RBI. So this is what the cash reserve ratio is about. So what is the advantage does it bring? Why the RBI is using this as one of its monetary policy tool is it wanted to reduce or control the inflation that is prevailing in the system. So because of increased, if the RBI is fixing increased percentage of CRR means, then the bank needed to keep aside a huge amount of money with the RBI as the reserve, as a result of which the liquidity that is present in the banking system will be reduced. So they will be in a situation where they will be disposing only less amount of credit, so that the people will also be having access to certain restricted amount of credit only, so that the money available in the money that is present in the system will get reduced, which in turn will be reducing the inflation. And then it assists in building and sustaining the solvency position of the bank, and then it in turn helps to manage the liquidity that is present in the system, as a result of which the financial stability of the entire banking system, which in turn the banking system is the backbone for Indian economy, which in turn will safeguard the financial stability of Indian economy. And then it, by varying the percentage of cash reserve ratio, the credit being given to the consumers or the customers will also get reduced or increased according to the percentage of cash reserve ratio. So what does the impact of excess liquidity in a system will create? It will make, one of the positive things is that because of the excess liquidity, the bank will have more amount of money with it, so that the interest rate will be low. So it is one of the positive thing of the excess liquidity. At the same time, because of the enormous availability of liquidity in the system, people could be able to access credit, so that there will be increase in the investment will be taking place. These are all the two positive things of excess liquidity. And what are the negative thing is that because of the enormous amount of access to the credit by the consumers, there will be the money available with the people will also get increased, so that they will be spending on the market goods, so that the inflation, the demand increases, so inflation will also get increased. And then because of increase in inflation, there will be volatile in the exchange rate of our currency will be taking place. So these are all the positives as well as negative impact of excess liquidity is about. So this is how the CRR will be working. See, when a person deposits ₹1000 in a bank, if the CRR that year is 4%, means the bank will be keeping will keep with it 960 rupees, and the remaining 40 rupees, that is the 4% of the ₹1000, will be deposited with RBI in the form of reserve. So this is what is called as cash reserve ratio. So this is what the analysis in relation to the cash reserve ratio is about. Incremental cash reserve ratio is the additional reserve ratio that the RBI mandates the bank to keep with the mandates the banks to keep with the central banks. So this is what the news as well as analysis in relation to the CRR is about. United Nations Global Climate Stocktake flags large deficit as G20 drags its feet. See, the Global Stocktake report has been released, which is the 5-year, which is the mandate of Paris deal, where every 5 years there need to be a comprehensive global stocktake needed to be taking place. what is the global stocktake is? It is the complete analysis of the situation, where are the countries are standing in terms of implementing the mitigation efforts, and where are the areas they needed to improve, and it will also give a suggestion what are the things each and every country needed to do. So this is what the global stocktake is about, and the report on global stocktake has been released recently. It is said that nowhere the countries are close to achieving the targets fixed by the global climate body, and then the chances of meeting 1.5 degrees Celsius target implied a reduction of 43, 60 as well as 85% in global greenhouse gases below 2019 level in 2030, 2035, 2050. So this is what the explanation of the news is about. So we have a long way to go in terms of our mitigation efforts to reduce the impact of the climate change. So how the news is being related to civil service examination is, under prelims the news is related to general issues on environmental ecology, biodiversity and climate change. Under mains paper 3 under environment topic, it is related to conservation, environmental pollution, degradation and environmental impact assessment. Okay, what is the global stocktake? I have explained it. It is the 5-year once program which needed to be conducted by all the member countries of United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change, who are the parties of the Paris deal, and they have to take stock of the climate activity, that is the progress, what are all the progress being made by the country and what are the things they needed to do so that the climate goal will be achieved. So what is the challenge in achieving the climate goal right now is the lack of consensus. Right now, what India is saying in the global arena is that the climate goals needed to factor in the per capita carbon emission. But in the case of Western and as well as US, what they are saying is that no, it is not the per capita carbon emission that should be accounted in. It is the overall carbon dioxide emission that should be accounted in the carbon related emissions across the world. This kind of division that has been happening in the climate body, and then right now the Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries are hindering the G20's climate consensus in relation to the climate change. What they are saying is that there should not be a word called phase down or phase out of the coal, because they are phase down or phase out of the fossil fuels, because the Saudi Arabia and other Gulf nations are dependent on the fossil fuel, that is the crude oil, for their growth of their economy. So these terms in the final document of the G20 climate change consensus agreement, if there has been a word phase down or phase out of the fossil fuel is there, means surely it will be a hit to the Saudi Arabia as well as the other Gulf countries which are producing the fossil fuel based oils. And what are the other world countries other than the countries which is producing the fossil fuel based oil is saying is that no, it is very important that the fossil fuel based oils needed to be cut down, or they needed to be eliminated completely. So this kind of division is also taking place in the global arena in relation to the climate change. And then funding mechanism. As we all know, the Western countries has pledged to give $100 billion every year since 2020, but it is not made so. If the country is going to get transformed from fossil fuel based to non-fossil fuel based economy, means there need to be heavy investment in relation to the technology as well as the skill development and other things which are related to the transformation is required. And such transformation will have huge cost, which the developing as well as underdeveloped poverty country and other small island state country could not able to afford. It is the historical responsibility of the Western countries. They needed to take the responsibility to help those developing as well as underdeveloped and small island state countries to transform themselves into the non-fossil fuel based economy, which the Western countries are not doing right now until now. Lack of climate sensitive in the policy. Our policy making is oriented towards incrementalism, not towards climate sensitization. Because of the incrementalism and then political agenda and vested interest, the climate sensitization is not inculcated into the policy making itself. And then challenge in the availability of resources. For example, if the country needed to implement the transformation to non-fossil fuel based economy, means there need to be technologies that needed to be made. For the technologies needed to be made means there need to be a complete access to the critical minerals like silicon, cobalt, and rare earth minerals as well as nickel should be available to all the countries. But these kind of rare earth minerals as well as other critical minerals are concentrated only on certain handful of countries like China, which is having bias towards the Western countries as well as India in providing those critical minerals, as a result of which we are facing a challenge in accessing those critical minerals, so that we could not able to implement our non-fossil fuel based technology, which is very helpful for reducing the carbon emission, which in turn will enable the country to reach the climate goals. So this is what the challenge is. So what is the causes for climate change? General causes for the climate change, first is deforestation. Because of deforestation, the carbon sink is got lost or it is getting reduced at the faster rate. And then increase private vehicles led to increased emissions, and then the emission from other sources is also got increased. And then unplanned development. And then livestock sector is also one of the important contributor for methane gases. And then the traditional agriculture practices, and then lack of adaptation to the newer methods or efficient methods in the agricultural process is leading to increased emissions as well as the related climate change in the global arena. So what does the climate change does to the whole world is, there is a rise in temperature across the world, and then because of the rise in temperature, our glaciers of the world, which is the important source for the drinking water, is also melting at faster rate, as a result of which the sea level is getting raised. And then because of the increased temperature, our sea level is also facing the acidification problem. And then there has been erratic rainfall that is happening. For example, the August month rainfall, where we face the deficiency in the rainfall. And then loss of wildlife. For example, because of the acidification, the aquatic ecosystem is getting destroyed, and then land degradation is also taking place because of the effect of the climate change. What is the social impact it is creating is the, apart from the conflict related migration, economic related migration, right now the climate change related migration is getting picking up because of rise in sea levels as well as submergence of coastal areas under the sea now as well as the future date, and the lack of availability of the resource because of the climate change is making people to get displaced from one place to another place where they could able to have access to the resources which will enable them to live a peaceful life. And then it is making the livelihood of the people questionable, as a result of which they are being pulled into poverty. And then, as I said, loss of livelihood. For example, as I said, because of the rise in temperature, the sea is getting acidified. As a result of the acidification of the ocean, there has been drastic decrease in the marine ecosystem, and the population, those who are dependent on the or whose livelihood is dependent on the fishing related as well as aquatic ecosystem, is getting destroyed. As a result of which their livelihood is getting destroyed, and they are pulled down into the poverty cycle. And then hunger and malnutrition. And again, the aquatic ecosystem is the one of the example where the aquatic related ecosystem as well as and the products which are obtained from the aquatic ecosystem act as huge protein source for the people. Because of the destroyment of those kind of ecosystem, the huge amount of nutritive elements is getting destroyed from the people's food baskets. And then there has been global food shortage is also taking place because of the climate change. These are all the social impact in relation to the climate change. So what is the effort that has been going at global level is, right now the Paris deal has been formed in 2015 to reduce the increasing temperature across the globe. And then 2015 sustainable development goal has been formed by United Nations, which has direct impact on reducing the climate related impact. And then convention on combating the desertification is also formed. Then the convention on biological diversity is also formed, which are the direct influence on reducing the climate change related incidents, negative incidents. What is the effort that is made at India's level is, right now India has pledged goal at United Nations framework for convention on climate change, which is called as Panchamrit goal. And then we have formed electric vehicle policy to transform our economy, transform our transport sector from the fossil fuel to the non-fossil fuel based transport sector. And then a national action plan on the climate change has been formed. Similarly, India has played a major role in forming the international solar alliances along with the France. Similarly, India has formed a mission called Life Mission, that is changing the lifestyle of the people, which will be in tune with the sustainability of the environment, so that there won't be the climate related negativity could be reduced. So what we needed to be studied further is, we should know about the ecosystem. What does the ecosystem mean, and what are all the different types of ecosystem that is present. Second is, we should know about what is greenhouse gases, which are all the important constituent of greenhouse gases. And then we should also know about G20, its reason for formation, structure, functioning, members. And right now India is having a presidency in G20, so we should also know about the themes and also what are all the major areas that has been focused on G20, we have to know about. Philippines and Australia upgrade ties to strategic partnership. So Philippines and Australia signed strategic partnership agreement. With this, they will be having yearly defense minister meet, which will in turn strengthen the strategic related engagement. And Australia is Philippines' second largest defense partner. This partnership is very important from the perspective of the trouble created by the China in the South China Sea. So how the news is being related to civil service examination is, under prelims it is related to current events of national and international importance. Similarly, under mains it is related to effect of policies and politics of developed as well as developing countries on India's interest and Indian diaspora. Okay, let's discuss about the South China Sea issue first. the history of South China Sea issue. After the formation of 1982 UNCLOS Convention, that is Convention for Law and Sea, the sea related issues is the sea related events or dispute will come under this 1982 UNCLOS Convention. During that time, the South China Sea's important islands like Paracel, Spratly and Scarborough Shoal Island was disputed by certain handful of countries only, between China as well as other Philippines and Brunei, like that country only. But after 1990s, because of the rise of multilateralism, there has been increased cooperation between the countries taken place because of the new multilateralism as well as the policy related multilateralism that got promoted around the world. But it got disturbed after 2014 unilateral action by the Russia by annexing the Crimea, which questioned the multilateralism across the world. And then similarly, the Chinese government after that, in 2015-16 period and all, they have heavily increased their military presence in those South China Sea to take all the islands which they are claiming through the use of force. But during the time of 2016, because of the decisions made by International Court at Hague, what they have ruled is the areas claimed by the Chinese at the South China Sea is valid. Sorry, it is invalid. So the International Tribunal ruled against the China. But after that, even though the Philippines and other country has won the ruling, the China is using its military force to regain those areas. They are not obeying the order being passed by International Tribunal under UNCLOS law. So this is what the situation right now is. And in this situation, why the South China Sea is being claimed by more number of countries is because of two reasons. One is natural resource it has, and other important economic thing is the trade. More number of world trade are being passed through this South China Sea only. So it has enormous economic potential. So if they are controlling if any country that is controlling the South China Sea, they are indirectly controlling the trade of nearly half of the trade of the global world. So that is why the China is having more interest on the South China Sea. What the India stand is, nearly 55% of India's trade is taking place through this South China Sea only. So India is having a direct interest in the issues related to South China Sea. India is initially India does not wanted to involve in the bilateral disputes, and because of the interest in the India's interest being undermined by the China, it is right now India is internationalizing the issue in terms of being the member of Quad as well as other areas, which other platforms which promotes transparency as well as freedom in transparency, obeying rule of law, freedom of navigation, which implies the South China Sea. On the broader view, it implies the overall Indo-Pacific region. So this is what the stand of India is, and this is what the overall issues in relation to the South China Sea is. So what we needed to be study further is, we should know about the UNCLOS law, the important provision of it. Similarly, we should also know about the East China Sea, the dispute that is being created by the China itself. So what is the reason? Which are all the countries being involved in the East China Sea dispute? The geography of it we should be knowing about. Thirdly, we should also know about the India-China relationship. So these are all the other things which we needed to be aware of. Self-regulatory organization for fintechs. How will it benefit the sector? RBI governor has asked the fintech companies to come forward voluntarily and form the self-regulatory organization to ensure the code of conduct in the fintech companies business. How the news is being related to examination is, under prelims it is related to economic and social development. Similarly, under mains it has been related to Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development and employment. Okay, what is the self-regulatory organization is about? It is the non-governmental organization where the companies of the particular sector will come forward to form the regulatory organization, where they will be setting the certain rules as well as regulations, and they will be enforcing those rules, regulations and standard to ensure the orderly in the conduct of business of every people who have involved in the particular sector which formed the self-regulatory organization. Similarly, the policy will be formed by all the stakeholders involved in the particular sectors, and then the mechanism will be, even though it is a self-regulatory organism, the self-regulatory organization, the organization which is regulated by the companies which is present in the sector, even though it has been regulated by the companies that is present in the sector, the organization or the governance in relation to the self-regulatory organization will be impartial, where the mechanism will decide those disputes impartially, and they will be giving the free as well as fair trial to both the consumers as well as the companies which are involved in the disputes. And then it will address the concern beyond the narrow self-interest of the companies or the sector in terms of protecting the consumer interest. Promoting the law of land or obeying the law of land through this mechanism. So these are all the interests will be inculcated in the self-regulatory organization, where they won't be looking into the narrow self-interest of the company's health. Why self-regulatory organization is needed is, there need to be orderly development of the sector. If the orderly development of the sector needed to take place, means the self-regulatory organization is one of the important, plays a pivotal element in it. Similarly, it promotes responsible practices as well as fix the ethical standards that is related to the organization, like ensuring that privacy of the individuals are not violated, securing the data, and making rules and regulations in tune with the law of land. These are all the responsible as well as ethical standards will be fixed by SROs, that is self-regulatory organization. RBI, what RBI expects from the fintech players is, it wanted the fintech players to voluntarily come forward and form the SRO, the self-regulatory organization, so that they need to develop or evolve best practices for the field as well as the privacy regulations that should not enter or violate the consumer's privacy, and then set standards to avoid mis-selling of the product being produced by the fintech companies. and then promote ethical business. So these are all the expectation of central bank from the fintech companies. So what we needed to be study further is we should know about the operations of commercial banks. Secondly, we should know about the Digital India mission of our government of India. What does it mean? What are the visions being involved? Which ministry is responsible for implementing it? We should be knowing about it. Third is we should know about UPI as well as the digital wallet and the difference between the both of them. Similarly, fourth, we should know about what is payment bank, what is small finance bank, and what are all the requirements these banks have with relation to the RBI, and what is the reason for bringing those kind of bank apart from the commercial bank which is already present. So these are all the areas which we needed to be aware of. So let's look into a practice question. So I want those students, those who are watching the session, please do comment option point for the question which you are seeing right now on the board. So with this, we have reached the today's end of current affair analysis, Indian Express newspaper analysis session. So thank you.